The weekend might be over, you might be done partying, you might be heading back to work today, but that doesn't take away from the fact it is the best day of the week, Mock Draft Monday, here at the Fantasy Headliners. What's going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome back for another mock draft episode, and I'm really excited for this one because in the comments of some of our previous mock drafts, we saw and heard that you would rather see us do a mock draft with live people. As you know, we typically use a mock draft simulator and take you through each of the picks and talk about them as we're recording the video. But for this one, I gathered some of our writers and a bunch of our members of the exclusive Headliner Nation over through Patreon, and we mock draft together, and we'll talk about the results here in this video. Now, if you're interested in participating in those things in the future, don't forget you can head over to Patreon and help support the channel and get to be a part of that cool stuff. Only $5 a month is going to get you access to a bunch of extra exclusive content from the Fantasy Headliners. Extra podcasts, extra videos, extra articles. And when we do things like this, you'll have the first shot to jump in there. And don't forget, it goes all the way up to $20 a month, which gets you into a bunch of other stuff. And it'll get you a free draft guide. And you get access to all of our DFS content. Chris Kennedy killed it this week with golf DFS. And of course, when football starts up, we'll have that as well. So for this mock draft episode, we're going to jump into what those results were, who had the best team, who had the worst team. I'm going to be completely honest, did not love my team. But let's talk about it right now and go through why this draft was one of the more tough drafts I've had to experience so far this offseason. All right, before I transition over and show you the first set of picks that took place, I'm going to let you know that my draft strategy completely changed throughout the first round. Typically, I'm a running back heavy guy, but because this mock draft was done with so many people who watch and support the channel, I really had to go against a bunch of people that were using my own strategies against me. And that's what made it a whole lot of fun. Because we got to the end of the first round and I quickly realized, man, I'm going to have to get a little bit crazy with this team and do something that I'm not really comfortable with. So let's talk about how you have to be able to change within your draft, change that strategy, try to stay ahead of what's going on in front of you, and not let a lot of those big runs happen. So let's take a look at the first 9 rounds of this draft. First 9 rounds are shown here in front of you. You can see all the names up there at the top. My name is highlighted over there, KRich1532. I was drafting out of the 10 hole. So I decided to go a little bit later in the draft because a lot of the mock drafts that I have done so far have been later on or earlier on in the first. So I wanted to do something here from the end. And that running back, that running back run took place in the first round. I could not believe how many running backs went and as early as they ended up going. My thought was at the end of the first round in the 10 hole, I'm going to be able to get Nick Chubb or Josh Jacobs or Joe Mixon. That I'm going to start with one of those 3 and I'll be just fine going into the second round where I might take a wide receiver. That didn't happen because the first 9 picks were all running backs, and Chubb, Mixon, Jacobs, all of them went right there before me, and then Derrick Henry at the 9 spot went as well. So then when we got to the 10 hole, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, all right, this is where I need to start changing my strategy. Because I could go with a running back here, but why don't I just go with the wide receiver 1? Let's go ahead and roll here with Michael Thomas, because then I can get my shot at Austin Eckler in the second round if I want. Because if Michael Thomas goes off the board here, Devontae Adams will surely go. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, Julio Jones. Maybe you see Kenyon Drake and Miles Sanders go as well. Well, after I take Michael Thomas, Devontae Adams comes off the board, which I thought. Miles Sanders, okay. And then Austin Eckler goes at 2.1. So right there, now we've got Kenyon Drake off the board. And as you see some of the other guys behind them, Leonard Fournette, Aaron Jones, Todd Gurley, David Johnson, Chris Carson, Singletary, Ingram, all of those guys that ended up going before it got back to me, I'm sitting there in the second round and I'm thinking, okay, I could reach for a running back right now, or I could go ahead and take my wide receiver 3 in Tyreek Hill. I absolutely love Tyreek Hill. He has more upside than any of the running backs left at this spot. I'm not going to push it. I'm going to go ahead and go with a wide receiver 2 here. I don't love this, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I went ahead and went with Tyreek Hill, 3 more wide receivers off the board. And I mentioned it a second ago. A ton of running backs come off the board before it gets back to me at the 3.10, and a couple of tight ends there in the 3rd round. So Patrick Mahomes comes off the board at 3.9, and you know us here at the Fantasy Headliners. We don't love taking quarterbacks early on. But with the way the scoring was set up, and this was done through the Sleeper app. So if any of you are familiar with Sleeper, it's a pretty cool fantasy football website. They are a platform just like ESPN and My Fantasy League and Yahoo and all of them. They're a platform that allow you to run their fantasy leagues through them, and that's where we did this mock draft through. And with the way the settings were going, when we get to the 3.10, I'm taking a look at projected fantasy points. And Lamar Jackson, he's sitting there, and he has by far the biggest upside of anybody on the board currently. I could go with Melvin Gordon. I could go with a Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I could go with a Le'Veon Bell. Guys like that, James Conner. I like all these running backs, but I think to myself, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and go with Lamar Jackson here. I'm going to take my quarterback 1. And I'm going to go ahead and with my next pick, I'll for sure get one of these running backs. And then when it gets back to me in the 5th round, my thought is that Kareem Hunt and James Conner would be 2 of the guys that would still be there. It's been so running back heavy already at this point that a lot of these people will probably start, especially if they see Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson go back-to-back, they're going to think the quarterback run is coming, so they're going to start taking quarterbacks. Might see a couple of more tight ends go at this point. Should see a lot of wide receivers start going. I thought to myself, for sure, I'll get one of those guys. So I decided to go Lamar Jackson. Melvin Gordon goes off the board. Robert Woods, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. And then at that point right there, I'm like, okay, I need to get a guy that has upside every single week. Clyde Edwards-Helaire to me is a guy that I don't love having as my running back 1. But because I was not able to get one of those locked in guys in the first couple of rounds, I have to get guys that have good upside every single week. And Edwards-Helaire is a guy that's going to have good upside every single week. He's going to be worked out in the passing game. Yes, his floor might be a little bad some weeks because I'm telling you, Damian Williams isn't going anywhere. He's still going to be used in the game or in the rush game there. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire doesn't have a great floor every single week, but because of his work in the passing game, he'll have a pretty decent ceiling. So I said, you know what? He's the guy that right here has some of the best upside. So I'm going to go ahead and go with him. And then hopefully when we get back to my pick in the 5th, some of those guys will be there. Nope, don't have it. 2 of the guys in the first 4 picks decided to go running back. That was one of the things that completely caught me off guard. And that's why you have to be able to change your strategy in draft. You have to be able to look at the board and say, holy crap, this is what's happening right now. I've got to change what I'm doing. And because those guys ended up going with running backs again, now James Conner and David Montgomery are off the board. At this point, I'm starting to sweat a little bit because I know now I'm going to have to go with somebody at my 5.10 pick that I'm not going to necessarily love. And I had to have another running back, and I ended up reaching really early for James White. I could not take a chance that James White, one of my guys that I think is dramatically going to outplay his ADP this year, is gone later when I get to him. I needed him with this being a half PPR setup. I needed to have another guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire that I could put in that will have weekly upside in the passing game. Because when it's going back through, Kareem Hunt, Mostert, all those guys are gone. So the only guys that are left are DeAndre Swift. How much is he actually going to be used in the game, in the game plan to begin with? Jordan Howard, Darius Geis, Tariq Cohen, Kerryon Johnson, Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones is a guy that I was targeting, but again, I missed out on him. So we get all the way through. We get back to James White. And at this point, Dak Prescott goes off the board again, and it kind of wraps back around to me. And I'm trying to think, okay, now, do I want to go running back again? A.J. Green is sitting there, which I don't mind A.J. Green. But again, I'm thinking to myself, I think Ronald Jones will be there at the next pick. He's the guy that I'll go with as my running back 3. I go with A.J. Green. Ronald Jones goes off the board at 7.1. And now, once again, I'm stuck trying to play from behind at the running back position. That's what this entire draft ended up being for me. It was not being ahead of the curve, and you can absolutely see that here. Sometimes you have to just say, you know what? I'm going to reach for a guy, even though this isn't a spot that I would really want to take him. So at my first two picks, I'm okay with what I did there because I took high upside guys. Tyreek Hill, an absolute steal at 2.3. Michael Thomas really is a steal at 1.10. But instead of going quarterback at 3.10, again, because the game plan was changing so much, I did panic a little bit. I'm a guy that typically in the draft, I feel like I move really well with the draft. I don't get too flustered with it. That didn't happen with this draft. I got into my mind a little bit. Headliner Nation did a great job of throwing me off my game in this draft. Because you know what I should have done? I got a little too cute because remember a minute ago I said if I take Lamar Jackson here, a lot of people will start thinking, oh, here come the quarterbacks. They'll go. It didn't happen because you listen, Headliner Nation. You all listen to what we tell you when it comes to getting so much value at the quarterback position this year. My chance to try and throw you all off didn't happen, and that's so cool to see. That is awesome to see. Absolutely love you guys and girls out there because you didn't let this throw you off. You've listened to these videos, you've prepped, you're ready to go, and you said this is what I'm going to do. And even when I'm in here trying to throw you all off, it didn't happen, and that was so cool to see because that quarterback run that I thought I would start didn't end up happening. So there at the 3.10, I should have just reached for James Conner. I should have just went for it. He was kind of my next guy on the board there. I should have waited at quarterback and went with James Conner, and my team would have looked a lot better because then in the 6th round, I could have went with like a Russell Wilson, or I could have went with a Dak Prescott at 5.10 if I wanted to. So once again, ladies and gentlemen of Headliner Nation, that's why you have to be able to adjust in draft very, very well. Doing mock drafts like this over the course of the offseason, a lot of people think that they don't matter as much. A lot of people say, mock drafting, it doesn't matter. To get some people together. This is why this is really cool and why you should join us over on Patreon, because we're going to continue to do this throughout the offseason, and it gives you a chance to mock draft against a bunch of people that you're probably not actually going to be playing in a league against. We're going to do some headliner leagues this year. Don't you worry. They're going to be opened up for our Patreon members to begin with. We're going to try and get some subscribers from the channel as well and see how much time we have. But that's one of the reasons why you should mock draft, because when you're going through all of this, you can see it. So to kind of finish out the 9 rounds, I ended up going Matt Breida at the 8.3, a guy that, once again, might get some passing game work there while he's in Miami. Probably not going to get a ton of checkdowns, but if something happens to Jordan Howard, he's a guy that now I've slipped into a running back 1 spot. And then John Brown, because I love his upside every single week. And then I have to give a shout out to my buddy Jesse, the Diablo, who decided to take a defense at 9.9. He's always doing crazy things like that in drafts because he just likes to mess with people, and that's what he did there. So that's what happens sometimes with real people. You're going to get thrown curveballs like that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the last several rounds here. You can see there, again, went 15 rounds here. At number 10, I end up going with my tight end here. Now, I've been waiting on Jonnu Smith quite a bit, but when we got here and I looked around at the 10.3, I was going to end up going with Sony Michel here, but he ended up going the pick right before me at 10.2. So then I took a look at it, and I didn't see anyone here that excited me too much. So I decided to go with Hunter Henry. He was kind of my number 1 option on the board right there. I've already taken a whole lot of wide receivers. I'm taking a look at the running backs, and I'm like, there's no one I really want to reach for. I could end up taking Duke Johnson here. I could end up taking some of my other guys, but I went with Hunter Henry there instead. And then 11, 10, and 12, 3. I took a couple of handcuffs that I really like this year. Anthony McFarland Jr. and Tony Pollard. If you buy the draft guide, you're going to see some awesome stuff on Tony Pollard and my dynamic running back ranking or rating. You're going to see there what he could possibly do if he gets more looks this season. Do I think that happens with Zeke? Not necessarily. However, if anything were to happen to Zeke, if he had to miss a game or two, Tony Pollard is going to be a really, really nice handcuff to own. Same thing for Anthony McFarland Jr. If anything were to happen to James Conner, I think McFarland is the guy that could end up being used in that game, that scheme there in Pittsburgh quite well. He's more dynamic than the rest of the running backs on the roster. He can take it to the house anytime he touches it. Those are 2 guys that if you're drafting handcuffs this year, and if you watched my video from a week or so ago when I talked about Ezekiel Elliott testing positive for COVID-19, I gave you some breakdowns on things you need to do differently this year if if it's going to happen, we're going to play football, people. It's going to happen. Don't worry about that. Staying positive here. But, if we need to change our mindset this year in terms of what we're doing, because players could end up sitting out a couple of weeks, you want to draft good players that are going to handcuff some of those top-end running backs. So that's why I went with Anthony McFarland Jr. and Tony Pollard late. I ended up going with the Denver Broncos at 13. Again, I played this as if we were drafting and getting ready to start the season. If you're drafting really early in the offseason, don't worry about defense and kicker. Take high upside guys. Like Brandon Ayuk went at 15.4. This draft was done before the Deebo Samuel injury. Or actually, it was done the night of, maybe? It was either done the night before or the night of. I can't remember for sure. But Brandon Ayuk is a guy that you definitely should have taken there in the later rounds. There's some, like an Anthony Miller is there that you can take. Darrell Henderson Jr. is another handcuff between him and Akers. You're going to see both of them splitting some time. Chris Thompson there at 15.3 was a great grab by Chris Kennedy. So a lot of these guys through here, instead of taking a defense or a kicker, you'll want to get a shot at them instead. And then as you get closer to the season, guys that aren't going to make the roster or guys that get hurt or guys that aren't getting a lot of playing time, then go ahead and throw them back to waivers and you can go ahead and go back and grab a defense. I end up going with the Denver Broncos here for defense because I think the Denver Broncos are going to get a lot of sacks this year, some fumbles, and some interceptions. They might give up quite a bit of points because of where the division in which they play, but I think they're going to get a lot of sacks. They're going to get a lot of extra points from things like that, and that's why I picked them up there. And then I went with Matt Prater from the Lions, repping my Lions a little bit because I'm not drafting a whole lot of them in this draft. So I went with the Lions kicker, Matt Prater there. He's going to get a shot at quite a few field goal opportunities this year with as good as the Lions offense possibly could be. So let's go ahead, let's rewind it. Let's go back to the last page here real quick and take a look at what we're doing there. And some of these teams that did really good and some of the teams that, maybe not done as nearly as good as I would have liked. My team, like I said, I'm iffy on it. I think it's really middle of the pack. I didn't love what I did here. That's why mock drafts are so good to do. I was not in love with my team here. Over here, River Martin, 2005. I kind of liked this start to begin with. Getting Barkley and Gurley, I think, was a great start for him. But when it got back here to David Johnson, I think I would have rather have seen him skip right here on David Johnson and gone with like a Calvin Ridley instead. Robert Woods is also a guy that he could have gone here early third round. And then Allen Robinson went really, really late in this draft. Now, keep in mind that a lot of people are doing dynasty drafts right now. So when we're doing some of these drafts, some guys are like, in a dynasty mindset, we might be taking guys a little bit earlier on, like a DK Metcalf or a Calvin Ridley. Allen Robinson just continued to slip through the cracks because even though we've had him as a wide receiver 1 this offseason in our rankings for the most part, a lot of people share the same concerns as us. Who's going to be the starting quarterback? So Allen Robinson ended up slipping quite a bit down the board here. He probably shouldn't have. Shadow Thug, 12 here. Josh Jacobs and Leonard Fournette. Really like this start as well. Would have rather have seen it. If he could have gone Josh Jacobs, Todd Gurley, and then maybe Allen Robinson here, then A.J. Brown, that would have been an excellent start. And then Kareem Hunt after that, I would have really, really loved that start as well. Lior, who's one of our guys here, Lior Colton, one of our writers, absolutely love this team. This was a phenomenal team. Mixon, Galladay, Singletary, Beckham, McLaurin, Howard, Waller. This start right here was absolutely smashed by Lior. So kudos to Lior. Matt St. G, our buddy M. St. G, you see him all the time in the comments, all the time in the live shows. Starts with Nick Chubb, Julio Jones, Mark Ingram, Metcalf, Diggs, Kyler Murray. This was a hell of a start as well. Matt St. G did a great job here. Really liked his start as well. And then KABB0305, my buddy Joey out there in one of our group chats. Joey's a guy that's been following me from like the very beginning. He's like original. He's like OG K-Rich 1532 followers. So he's been around for a long time. Really loved getting a chance to draft with him. Obviously the great start there with McCaffrey. He likes Thielen a little bit more than I do this year. He gets Cooper Kupp as well. Jonathan Taylor. Juju is a great pick here in the 5th round, and so is Brandon Cooks. And then he gets Ronald Jones here in the 7th round. Again, I'm not off Ronald Jones at all. I know Jake's hashtag is hashtag say no to Rojo. Mine is hashtag say maybe to Rojo this year. It depends on where you get him. In the 7th round with the other guys that are left, I don't mind this at all. And then he gets Carson Wentz here in the 9th round. So Joey did a good job as well. It was really cool. A lot of Headliner Nation, exclusive Headliner Nation that was drafting here with us did a great job. I could see as everything was playing out, I could absolutely see that a lot of the things that we talk about here on the channel were being used. Dixie Rose TX here, Anna, who hangs out in the chat a lot, she's a part of our MVP package as well on Patreon. She's in that chat over on Twitter. We have a special chat for our MVP group. Good start for her as well. Dalvin Cook, Chris Godwin. She goes George Kittle here in the 3rd, and then comes back with Amari Cooper as her wide receiver 2. Absolutely love it. And then getting Raheem, not quite a must-start Mostert here in the 5th round, followed by Deshaun Watson. She's a Texans fan. Don't hold it against her, people. And then Kerryon Johnson. I kind of liked her start as well, up through here in the 5th round. So this was, again, I think a lot of people did a really, really great job. I didn't love my team, but that's okay, because it was really cool to see the rest of Headliner Nation really using a lot of the information that we present to you in every single video against us. And that's what all of this is about. We're a channel for the people. We say that over and over and over again, that we do all of this for Headliner Nation, that we grind out the hours and grind out the content and spend the time doing this because of just the awesome community that we've created here that's been so supportive of everything that we've done, and comes back to the comments and leaves lots of comments saying, you guys have helped me win championships, or I won this week because of you guys, or you've helped me learn something that I didn't know before. That's just too cool. So I don't care how my team looks at the end of all this. You can give me a D grade in the comments and you can say, Kyle, that was an awful team. Absolutely horrible. We're all going to have drafts like that, and I'm absolutely okay with it because the rest of Headliner Nation absolutely crushed it, and that's what I love to see. So there you have it, a unique twist on our Mock Draft Monday. Hopefully you all loved it. I absolutely loved doing this mock draft with Headliner Nation. We're going to be doing a lot more of this. So definitely head over to Patreon and subscribe there. You can hop in, like I said, for as little as $5 a month, and you'll be able to jump into a lot of this stuff with us, and you're going to get a lot of extra content on top of that you're not going to hear on the channel, and you're not going to get in the draft guide. That's a lot of unique stuff over there as well. We just dropped another one of our podcasts over there. We're doing a bi-weekly podcast, so lots of great stuff over there. As far as this video goes, I hope you all enjoyed it. Do me a favor, though, before you take off. Hit that like button. Comment below and let me know what you thought of this draft, what you liked, some things that you liked that you saw, some things that you didn't like. And of course, if you're new here to the Fantasy Headliners, hit that subscribe button and become a part of Headliner Nation today. Thanks so much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all are staying safe, staying healthy. You had a great Father's Day weekend, and I'll catch you all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.